So you can see this pivot high and how it kind of went up. It pulled back, went up, pulled back, then it broke out. And there's this tendency for it to retrace to that line, which is going to be big support. This was resistance. When resistance is broken, it becomes support. And so the idea here, and just yesterday, I was looking to buy it there. It just didn't get there. That's part of trading. For those of you watching, you isolate your levels. You remain extremely disciplined at your levels. And if it doesn't fill sometimes, you just kind of say, okay, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Okay, I mean, right now, I mean, just looking at the chart, if I'm looking at the right chart, I don't see much movement on it. Looks like it's kind of been dead for a while. So again, it doesn't mean it can't wake up, but for me, this would be like, okay, it's not falling sharply into support. It's not ripping into resistance. So as a swing trader, I would just sit on the sidelines with this one, for me at least. Yeah. I mean, it certainly has flatlined now since May. And so that does tell you that really there's not a whole lot of sellers left. So that could be a positive, absolutely. Or it could be the fact that maybe there's just not a lot of interest. I mean, some of these cryptos, and again, I don't know the market cap on this, but I think as the bear market gets deeper and deeper, there are a certain amount of cryptos that people are just like, hey, listen, I'm not even going to look at it. I'm not going to trade it anymore. So I'd have to look at the volume on this as well and see, is there a lot of volume, or is it kind of dried up recently? And could that be why there's just no interest in it?
Got you. What about ApeCoin?
Ape, let's take a look. I mean, Ape's kind of interesting. I mean, this one, you had the nice move up, and then the down, you have a little bit of a rounded bottom here. It's not a horrible chart. I would say right off the bat, what I'm seeing here looks like a little bit of a trend line right there, and you're kind of coming up. So that would be the line I would look for as a breakout. If you could get above, it looks like around $6.50. That would be a nice little mover where you could at least trade to 770 and then maybe as high as around 9.5. On the downside, you just wouldn't want to see this line break, right? So very clear pivot to pivot to pivot. And so basically you want it to stay above $4.70. And so basically what this is a wedge pattern, and it is coming to a head, which tells you it's either going to break out or break down. And then it's just a matter of whichever way it goes. Usually that's the big move that it's going to have.
Right. And then finally, I'm looking at Cosmos.
Cosmos. What's the symbol on that?
Atom. ATOM.
ATOM. Take a look. You can tell I don't pay attention to, even though Atom's actually not that small of a one, but I just, for me, I'm like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, So this trend line's the big trend line on this one here. You can see how it connects through so many lows. So as long as that holds, you would look at that as being a potential positive for the chart, meaning that any sort of pullback close to that line, you could buy, and then you could just use a stop below the line. If it breaks down, you close out for a small loss. But the nice thing about it is you have a very defined line there to pay attention to. So yeah, overall, it looks okay to me. Again, I would just keep that stop right underneath that line. All right, here, let's take a look. So I slapped in the Ethereum chart, and then I overlaid the orange line as the BNB chart. And it looks like it's following it very closely, especially recently, very, very closely. What are you seeing? What were you seeing on this?
I was saying BNB being actually a chance to overtake Ethereum for a while.
Oh, interesting in terms of price action, in terms of, I mean, it doesn't look too bad. It looks like right here it flipped, right? So here it was below, then it flipped to outperforming, and it's staying above it for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not a bad chart. And one thing I see here too is you have a very defined kind of line here where you could see a potential breakout there. Ethereum obviously is seeing selling pressure following the merge. Kind of the news is over. Let's get back to kind of selling into it and taking profits. But I will say Ethereum, $1,250 is a really big level for Ethereum. If it can hold that, that's the key. If it breaks that, then you're going to go retest the lows below 1,000. Yeah, I mean, I think Ethereum, again, the beautiful thing about that is that you have a scenario where if 1250, and I almost bought it at 1250 the other day, and it got down to like 13, the kind of the high 12s, and it just didn't get down to that technical level. But that is a huge level on Ethereum, and it was definitely a level that I was paying very, very close attention to. So here I can show my chart, and we can just look at that line again just by itself. But basically, you have. Let me see here. Ethereum US dollar chart. That's the 10-minute chart. Let me go back to the daily chart. Here you go. So you can see this pivot high and how it kind of went up. It pulled back, went up, pulled back, then it broke out. and there's this tendency for it to retrace to that line, which is going to be big support. This was resistance. When resistance is broken, it becomes support. And so the idea here, and just yesterday I was looking to buy it there, it just didn't get there. That's part of trading. For those of you watching, you isolate your levels, you remain extremely disciplined at your levels, and if it doesn't fill sometimes, you just kind of say, okay, that's the way the cookie crumbles. Yeah, so this is real interesting on oil, right? So number one, yes, it's super nice to go, I still fill up at Costco, and it's a lot cheaper than it was, so that's the nice thing about it. One of the things I'm watching is this trend line. Look at this trend line going back to 2020 November lows. So you could see how you hit it here. I could zoom in a little bit. You hit it and you bounced, now you're hitting it again. If this line breaks, you've got downside to like $76. So I mean, I'm in the position where, at some point, number one, we know the Russian oil didn't get taken off the market. It just got sold at a discount to other countries. So that was never an issue, and that was kind of like a misnomer, if you will. But basically, you're coming into the midterms. That's all. You always see oil trade down into the midterms, and we've seen that over the last few months. And then you also have this, Europe's in a really tough economy right now, and the U.S. is probably headed there because the Fed is being so aggressive. China's not doing great. The rest of the world's not doing great. And so you could literally see a reduction in demand of millions and millions of barrels of oil. And so price will be probably pushed down. So I wouldn't be short here because you're at support, but I am anticipating at some point oil is going to break this, and then you're going to see a pretty nice drop on oil even further. Yeah, for oil, it's never been as big of an issue because oil moves on so much geopolitical kind of stuff and economic stuff. So the dollar does play a small, minor role, but it's not as big versus gold, for instance. But yeah, for me, it would be irrelevant of that. Whatever, maybe it would cushion if the dollar pulls back, maybe it cushions a little bit, but it would still drop into the 70s pretty quick.